Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the REAIM Summit 2024. Now, without further ado, let us commence our second plenary session of the REAIM Summit 2024. So this session will focus on the topic, implementing responsible applications of AI in the military domain. We're honored to have Ms. Kirsten Binyard, Senior Analyst of Johns Hopkins University, as our moderator. Then, without further ado, let us begin the session with our 5 esteemed speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly put your hands together to welcome our speakers. Thank you, and our moderator, you may have the floor now.
Your Excellencies, esteemed panelists and colleagues and dear friends, wow. So much has happened since we met last year in The Hague. It's hard to fathom that ChatGPT had just taken the world by storm just a few months earlier, and we were getting our first inklings of what is to come. In addition to advancements in AI innovation since REAIM in 2023, over this past year, we have seen national AI policy development, growing international collaboration on responsible AI. We've seen deepening of regional work. We've seen the release of new tools for RAI and their guidelines to support them. We have increased public-private partnership and cooperation, seen new fora established for sharing of good practices and knowledge exchange. And importantly, there's people involved in this too. Take a moment and look around, and you're going to see both familiar and new faces. We are part of this growing responsible AI ecosystem. And implementing our AI practices has well and truly begun. I am delighted to be moderating this session on operationalization of responsible AI, and not just because after many years of practice, I can actually say that word without stumbling over it. Commitments to high-level principles and values are invaluable, but ultimately, we are going to be judged by our actions and not our intentions. If we are not agile, if we are unwilling to adapt our existing processes, or if we are unable to demonstrate effectiveness and deliver impact, responsible AI risks being perceived more as an inspirational slogan than the foundational approach to the design, development, deployment, and use of AI in defense. Now, early indicators are good. We should recall that it took the international community a decade to reach agreement on 11 norms of responsible state behavior in cyberspace, and it took an additional 7 years to add an additional layer of understanding about how we implement those norms. In comparison, the nascent international normative framework on RAI in defense has been fast-tracked, thanks to the work to many in this room. Now, we are only at the beginning of this common endeavor, and we have a diverse and experienced panel. Each one of them is a thought leader and a practitioner who are going to share insights and lessons learned on operationalizing RAI. With me, I have the Honorable Soipan Tuya, Cabinet Secretary for Defense, the Ministry of Kenya, the Republic of Kenya. Dr. Radhaplum, Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Officer at the Department of Defense. Mr. Jongjin Kim, Senior Vice President of Hanwha System and the Deputy Leader of their Space R&D Center. Dr. Jeroen Vanderhoven, Scientific Director and Professor of Digital Ethics Center at Delft University of Technology. And finally, Dr. Yi Zheng, Founding Director of Long-Term AI and Professor at the Chinese Academy of Sciences. There's so much ground to cover, so let's jump right in. I'd like to start with the theme of addressing challenges to operationalizing RAI in defense. So Dr. Plum, kick us off. The US has taken a very proactive, whole-of-life cycle approach to operationalization. Could you share a few insights about how states can effectively translate those high-level, broad principles into actionable guidance and practices?
Yeah, so thank you so much, and it's a real honor to be joining this group of panelists. I think it's helpful to just start with AI as a technology is a key example of where you need norm setting and design, development, and deployment to go hand in hand, because at the end of the day, you can't bake in a number of the responsibility, governance, reliability, traceability core principles without having those be translated into technical requirements that are part of the model's testing, evaluation, and deployment. So in the US context and in the Department of Defense, we began relatively early on in our AI journey with ethical principles. In 2020, we were the first military to adopt those, I believe. And concretely then, we needed to translate those into requirements for algorithmic models to be incorporated into defense systems. So just as a tangible example to walk through, in our governance principle, which really essentially requires algorithmic models to detect the things that they're intended to detect to avoid unintended consequences, we partnered with software developers at MIT to develop a software tool that actually quantifies the uncertainties so we can see where there are uncertainties in how the models are performing and use that both to choose the models and to inform those who are using the models on the degree of uncertainty that they're taking on. And for those who are more interested, you can see that at a demo of that in a breakout session led by our team later today. Another and broader example that translated those DoD ethical AI principles into tangible action is our RAI toolkit, which includes both qualitative and quantitative tools that can be applied in each evaluative step and in the life cycle. And I think here it's really helpful in a broad sense to ensure that you're baking in two key principles. One is that the systems and technical tools you have are modular. Not everyone is going to need every tool all along the life cycle, and you want to make those as accessible as possible. And they also need to be tailored where possible to particular use cases. So again, in our example, we've made these tools publicly available, made them modular. That way, anyone who touches the AI system from design to test and evaluation to deployment and use can use those tools to make sure they comport with the ethical principles and responsible use parameters.
Thanks for really emphasizing baking things in and modular. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to responsible AI. Having tailorable tools is important. And so why don't we move over to Mr. Kim? What are the main technical challenges that you see in developing explainable and trustworthy AI systems for military use, and how can those challenges be overcome?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude for inviting me over here in this expert group. So there are a lot of technical challenges implementing the responsible AI, especially for the industry like us. So, but I would like to focus on two main challenges that we are experiencing in daily development experience. The first one is the transparency of the AI development. Looks like this is very simple, but actually implementing the transparency in the AI design is quite challenging, daunting challenge for engineers and developers. Because there are many like open software that we can utilize in the defense industry as well. But if you're thinking of that complexity that our AI system has right now, it's not very obvious to have that transparency built in the AI development system. So in order to overcome that transparency in the development, there are several things that we can consider. So first of all, I think we need to have some, as Plum mentioned, that if possible, ever possible, if we can like break it into some modular or subsystem level of the AI system, that will be great because you can have some input and output in the subsystem level as a module. Then you can have a better understanding of what's going on in the whole AI system. So that can be beneficial for users and operators, even for the developers, so that they can develop and advance for the next version of the AI system. The second challenge that we are facing is the reliability, because AI, as you have to understand that AI is not something that you can trust all the time. It's a tool. So meaning that it's not perfect, it's not flawless. There is always some issues from the AI system that can generate. So because of the lack of the data, and then the high quality data, especially in the defense industry, is not always available for the developers. So the high reliability AI system is very challenging to design for developers and engineers. So this is not very obvious challenge. But one thing that we can do to overcome that challenge is that we try to establish some solid verification and the validation process to evaluate the outcome from the AI system. So that's the one thing. But as I mentioned earlier, this is still very challenging to implement that validation and the verification process as well. So we need to work closely with the government entities in order to build that very stable and solid validation and then verification process. And then the other approach that we can take is the post-hoc analysis capability. So if you can build that capability into your AI design, then even though you don't have a lot of accessibility in Turing, but you still have some tools that you can analyze and then understand and what's going on with AI system. So that will be helpful to overcome the challenges. Thank you.
Right. I think your emphasis on T&E and V&V is really important, and that probably takes us right to Dr. Vandenhoven, kind of continuing with the theme of design and development challenges. We just heard about some technical challenges, but how do we get to the non-functional requirements that really need to be part of our AI design efforts earlier in the life cycle?
Yeah. Yeah, first of all, it's good that you introduced this idea of these functional and non-functional requirements. I'm an ethicist, a professor of moral philosophy at a technical university, and the engineers, my colleagues, need to know what they have to do different on the Monday morning. So whatever you articulate as norms, relevant norms, or ethical principles, they need to be translated, broken down, specified in terms of requirements that they can work with. Now, they're used to working with functional requirements, you know, how big does it need to be, and how strong does it need to be, and how fast, and the bandwidth, etc. But now you're introducing human responsibility, human dignity, democracy, algorithmic fairness. So first what you need to do is, let's say, do a little bit of conceptual analysis. What do you mean with democracy? What do you mean? Do you mean deliberative voting? Depending on your definition, you enter a completely different trajectory, voting boxes or deliberation for citizens online. Same for algorithmic fairness, for all of these notions. So there's a little bit of conceptual analysis, the clarification and specification of the norms that we have. Which norms do we have? Well, that's international law and global ethics, you know, so there's, or per Martin's clause, the dictates of public consciousness or use cogence norms or whatever. So we are able to articulate some of those ethical principles. They have to be specified and engineered. Which conception do you have of control? Which conception do you have of fairness? And that needs to be, then you need to squeeze the requirements out of them. And then you could call them non-functional requirements. Interesting enough, when I talk to people, also the technical people, the computer scientists, they say, well, you call them non-functional requirements. Actually, they are so important that we should stop calling them non-functional because they have become functional. They are key to the success of our products and services. And then at the end, this is an exciting moment in the history of ethics. You start to design, you do engineering design. So you go from conceptual engineering to requirements engineering, and then to engineering design. And then you can come back if you don't like what you see in your prototypes and it doesn't work and you've done all the tests that our co-panelists have talked about and verified and tested, etc. Then you go back and say, well, perhaps we worked with the wrong definition of meaningful human control, or we worked with the wrong definition. We should make it more precise so that what we see is that we like what we see. So there is a design turn in moral philosophy, in ethics. Yeah? And it's interesting to see that the World Health Organization, as a member of the UN family, has endorsed this conception. In its most recent reports on ethics and artificial intelligence in healthcare, they have said this is the way forward. We cannot just remain at the level of general but important ethical principles. We will have to, and we'll talk about that later perhaps, insert that into the curriculum, into the education of our engineers and of our doctors, and the devil is in the details here. So that's we have to pay attention to the details.
Right. I really think that today's probably this session is the only panel we're going to hear an exciting moment in ethics, and I love that. That's where we need to put our heads, and you are pointing to great opportunities to do that. Madam Cabinet Secretary, AI is a resource-intensive technology, and given your experience in climate and environmental policy development, how do you see responsible AI's relation to the international community and national commitments to sustainability?
Thank you for having me on this panel, and also to say at this very onset that Kenya is greatly honored to be co-hosting this very timely REAIM summit. The resource intensity of AI is a given. When you talk about the energy needs, the computational power, the data storage, and therefore the question on sustainability and the impacts this would have on the environment becomes very pertinent. I see a very potential linkage between AI, and particularly responsible AI and sustainability. The potential, particularly in the energy sector, the potential in the agricultural sector, the conservation space is very potent, but then it has to be very deliberate and intentional to make sure that AI does integrate sustainability principles in its development, deployment, and usage. And the potential lies in reduction of waste, pollution reduction, as well as climate resilience. When you look at the design of the Sustainable Development Goals, there is an implicit reference actually to AI, in the sense that when you look at SDG 9, where it talks about industrialization, innovation, and infrastructure that is resilient. There, and at this point when the world is going into the Summit of the Future, reviewing the impact of Sustainable Development Goals, I think it's an opportune time to actually bring AI, and responsible AI for that matter, right at the center of the sustainability debate. And the potential, as I say, around emissions reduction, reducing energy consumption, green computation. These are areas that are available for ensuring responsibility and accountability of AI in the area of sustainability. At the global stage, again, AI must integrate sustainability in its core principles, conformity to the Paris Agreement, conformity at regional level, instruments of humanitarian law, human rights. I see this as very important areas where then AI becomes core in sustainability, and more so in the discussions that we are having around use of responsible AI in defense, in the defense domain. And this fora, the REAIM, the regional conversations, must then bring that angle of sustainability to the AI discussions. When you talk about sustainability, you cannot complete that discourse without talking about inclusivity. Inclusivity is about, the AI and responsible AI discussions should not only be at the government level, not only be at the high-level government levels. We have to bring in the the civil society, the young people, so that responsible AI then speaks to the planetary needs, speaks to the people's needs, but also profits in terms of improving the livelihoods of our populations.
And the Summit for the Future is a great place to be highlighting these issues. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Dr. Zhang, how can we ensure that our AI policies developed now remain relevant in the future? How do we future-proof AI policy?
Right. I think the question is related whether we could, prove the future. I think the answer would be yes and no. In a case that to the worst case, I would say no, we cannot do it. Simply because even for the current technology of AI, it will be already been very hard to mathematically and physically prove that they are probably safe. But on the other hand, can we stop trying? The answer is also no. So I think this is the spirit. I think, but there's a lot that we can do, at least to secure ourselves, both currently and for the future. I think at least something that we can do include, but not limited to, one is to raise the level of transparency of the current AI so that it is more explainable. If you wanted to make, if the AI system could be more clear to help us to assist the decision-making procedure. Well, on the other hand, I think we need to build and refine the theories for the current AI, simply because now it is an information processing system that seems to be intelligent, but it will make a bunch of mistakes that we can never expect. There's no theory for AI, no computational theory, solid theories for the current AI, so that it is not safe enough. Well, on the other hand, I would have to say, now AI is a data-driven system, so you map your inputs to the output by finding a mathematical optimizer. Well, the mathematical optimizer may have nothing to do with human intelligence. So this is why it makes mistakes. So maybe we need a more robust and profound test of responsibility and safety in the future, so that you build a much better mechanism-driven AI in the first place, and then you're building more robust and profound tests to help you to identify this is, safe or not. So I have to say, for technologists and scientists in AI, for now, we cannot guarantee AI is safe enough to be used. And for military use, I would have to say, as a technologist, that even the technology ourselves cannot, make sure. And then when you're using it, it will be quite hard to really control it. So bear in mind that none of the AIs now is safe enough. Well, on the other hand, this is exactly why we have to move a step forward to probably save responsible AI for the future.
Constant improvement. I'd like to turn now to the theme of strengthening cooperation. As the saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, we have to go together. So how can we continue to strengthen the RAI ecosystem through effective cooperation and partnerships across communities, across sectors, in inclusive ways, as mentioned by the Cabinet Secretary, and across borders, as we are discussing here at REAIM? Dr. Plum, in your view, how does international cooperation contribute to strengthening norms around responsible AI in the military domain?
Yeah, well, let me start with actually, at the last REAIM, we announced the political declaration for responsible military use of AI and autonomy, which was really focused on responsible military behavior with these sort of AI-enabled technologies. Since then, there have been about 55 nations that have signed on, and it's really been a push to clarify and really unify around a norm-setting framework. I think that rallying around a framework is a really critical first step. But as I sort of said in the first part, the framework is just the beginning of the exercise, and you need to fast follow that with operationalization. So just using examples I know from our US DoD context, we've done this in a number of ways. We've done it through the Responsible AI Toolkit, which I mentioned, which is publicly available and allows us as a sort of just shared starting point for really anyone who wants to look at that and meet and talk with us. We've talked through with allies and partners in NATO on co-developing assurance processes and started to take the first steps on that really with that RAI toolkit to think about how we tailor the toolkit to the standards needed to meet the range of requirements from our NATO allies. In test and evaluation, we've worked with partners here in the Republic of Korea, in Singapore. We have upcoming plans for several other technical exchanges. And then even, more broadly through partnerships like the AI Partnership for Defense, we've looked for opportunities to share information, best practices, and more broadly just try to accelerate key enablers within our own systems. And then in the very specific use cases, we worked, for instance, with Five Eye partners on the development and deployment of very specific use cases, integrating those tools in with operational context to show that we can deliver meaningful value from these AI capabilities at speed in applications that are relevant for military uses. So the bottom line is, to your point, to really accelerate adoption, we have to kind of go on all paths, and that includes doing it in larger settings and with norms frameworks, political declarations, things like the AI Partnership for Defense in tailored settings with key allies and partners, whether it's on the test and evaluation or the process setting or bilaterally, to just show the value proposition and return across all of these ranges of cooperation, and we're really here for all of those opportunities.
Excellent. Madam Cabinet Secretary, diverse national priorities and regional realities impact operationalization. The African region has a long history of both regional and sub-regional organizations that play significant roles in security issues. So how do these organizations play a role in supporting and building the capacity of their members to adopt RAI approaches?
Thank you for your question. The need for cohesion, collaboration and cooperation on the question of responsible AI cannot be overemphasized. And that is at the global level, the continental level, regional levels. And as you say, in the African region, our regional organizations have been very crucial in brokering peace and collaboratively engaging in peace, defense cooperations across the region. And that cooperation is needed so much so when it comes to the issue of responsible AI in the defense domain. And the strength of this regional and sub-regional organizations comes in the power of congregating ideas, the power of aggregating resources in a resource scarce situation, the power of coming together cohesively to harmonize policies and strategies at the wake of the critical need to come up with the common frameworks, common guidelines, and common principles and norms around the responsible use of AI. So the regional organizations play a very, very crucial role, as has been demonstrated over time. And the fostering of the question of capacity building in terms of resources and ideas is very, very crucial. And the global ethical standards that the region must conform to then creates a forum where we minimize the conflict between national interests against the regional and global realities, which must meet somewhere for a cohesive approach to responsible AI.
The emphasis there on capacity building, helping one's neighbors to create stability mechanisms, must certainly also help with interoperability as well when we approach regional conflicts, for example. So how about cooperation with the private sector? Mr. Kim, how is Hanwha operationalizing our AI, working as a partner with government? What can governments learn from industry in operationalizing our AI in defense?
Sure. Hanwha is increasingly focusing on the responsible AI as part of its operation with the collaboration of the government and the government agencies. So since it's very early stage of the AI development in Hanwha, I can share here some of the things that some of the approaches that we are taking or we are considering. The first one is, as the Secretary of Kenya mentioned, that ethical AI development is the first important thing that we are considering. It has to come first based on the international humanitarian standard, which is aligned with the Korea's founding philosophy. So we have that genes from the long history. And the second thing that we are considering is that the compliance with the government and then international regulations, which is very important for Hanwha. So we are closely monitoring and then watching how the government is working for regulate those things. And then we have very close relationship with the Korean government. So I'm thinking that if there is some common standard from the international body, that we also will closely follow those guidelines from the international body as well. And then the third one is that, as I mentioned in the earlier talks, that the validation and the verification process is very important for us. So we are working really hard to implement that solid validation and the verification process for the responsible AI development. And then the second question that you're asking, what lessons that government can learn from the industry. Since I'm part of the industry, as we discussed in the other panel discussion, that among the allies, if there is some common ground rules or framework that the industry can follow, then that will be great for the industry, because then we can design the AI system that can align or apply for not only for the Korean government but also for the other allies, so that we can operate in seamless way in ultimately. And then the second thing is, especially in the defense and the military domain, obtaining the high quality data is really challenging. So as you all know, that data for the AI system is such a critical piece of the one element, but the obtaining high quality data in the industry for military and then defense industry is really challenging. So I'd like to ask the government so that they can build some structured process so that we can access the data securely. I understand that the confidentiality and the security is also very critical in the defense industry, but I hope that there will be some structured process so that we can work with the government, we can access the high quality data in order to build the better AI system. And then the third one is that we need to work closely between the government and the industry with a strong collaboration. That's the only way that we can trust each other and that we can build a better AI system overall. So overall, realization of the responsible AI in defense requires a concerted effort between industry and then government by having their own unique strengths to contribute to each other. So that way we can develop the responsible AI for industry, and then we can contribute to the government. Thank you.
The emphasis on creating those relationships of trust between organizations is fundamental if we're going to have those partnerships flourish. Dr. van der Hoeven, we can't have responsible AI without responsible development. So what more can be done to educate, engage, incentivize technologists to incorporate RAI in those early phases of the AI life cycle?
Yeah, I have a European example that makes me optimistic about the future in this respect. For example, we've done it in other areas, but privacy-enhancing technologies or privacy by design. That is coded into the law. So it's required by law to design systems in such a way that the likelihood of privacy violations will go down. So that has given rise to professionalization in the sphere of data protection. We have people in companies, both private and public sector, who specialize in kind of vetting or assessing or evaluating software solutions in light of privacy constraints. So that has given rise to a proliferation of professions and people who are running around these systems and trying to prevent privacy violation. I think similar things we see in other areas. The difference is that we have very little time to do it here with respect to AI, right? The speed is tremendous, and we need to institutionalize and create all of these mechanisms, very, very fast. But we have to be aware that that is the, let's say, the scale of the task. It is a vast labyrinth of mechanisms, of institutions, of awareness within the professions. I was also very, let's say, optimistic about the work of the WHO. We had the privilege of serving together on that WHO committee. Professionalization in the medical field, both for the computer scientists working there, but also for the medical professionals. They have to rise to the occasion. It's no longer just a matter of submitting your clinical trial to a review board. The review board has to also kind of step up its game and come to grips with a new reality that is AI-based and data-driven. So you see there tremendous, let's say, movements, and I expect the same thing here. The IEEE has, already a couple of years ago published its ideas about value-aligned design, and that's reaching out to a community of 10,000s of engineers worldwide. They have the same idea as we discussed in the first round. Designing for your values, whether they are meaningful human control or fairness or responsibility, you have to design for them. And the lesson is, this is my exciting, coming back to my exciting moment in the history of ethics, if you don't design for these things in the 21st century, they will not happen, only by accident. Right? So, and we don't want that. So that's a whole new generation. Also at technical universities across the world, I know many good examples. Our engineers, not only software engineers, but engineers across the board are being trained, are being educated to take those non-functional requirements that you started with on board and also become very good and skilled and also open and vulnerable in a sense, designing for those non-functional requirements. That's the way forward, according to me.
It's an exciting moment, as you say, for ethics, but it's also an exciting moment for young technologists, because this is a fascinating technical challenge of translating those non-functional requirements into things they can work with. And they're going to have to be part of that solution, right, of finding the way to do that, and talk about not a moonshot, but a real challenge for them to get their teeth into.
And now they can do the same for peace and a responsible use of AI in the defense sector.
Absolutely. Dr. Zhang, RAI requires cooperation amongst a variety of stakeholders, policymakers, technologists, ethicists, but these communities speak different languages, they have different incentives, and they work at different timescales, even if they are interested in collaborating. What practical and effective approaches do you see to build bridges between these different stakeholder groups?
Well, about the time scale, that wouldn't be easy. For our work in the United Nations advisory body on AI and also the UNESCO ad hoc expert group on AI ethics, and also Yuren mentioned the WHO group, that we've always been starting at 9 p.m. Beijing time, which I'm very sleepy, and also for our Korean delegates, it's 10 p.m. But I think it's doable time all over the world. But I think this is the easiest question, the easiest problem that we can solve. Well, on the other side, the challenge is really, as you said, the technologists, policymakers, and also ethicists, how can they work together? Let me tell you my story working as a technologist who is working on brain-inspired artificial intelligence. So now you have a neuroscientist and me coming from AI. So we talk to each other. Oh, you're working on vision. I'm also working on vision. I'm from neuroscience. Oh, I'm from AI. And this is an exciting moment, right? You can bridge the effort. But after 10 minutes, people will fight. You technologists, you never know, you know nothing about natural evolution. You know nothing about life sciences. And for the technologists, they say, oh, you're working on biological vision. You don't really process information. You cannot verify yourself computationally. So this is not the healthy way to work together. The only way that you work together is really that you become half of them. So me, myself, I was born in technology AI, but when you feel that you need ethical or moral AI, you need to learn about ethics, moralities yourself. I was challenged at the University of Chinese Academy of Sciences when I started a course on philosophy and ethics of AI. And my dean was like, oh, this guy, he has never been trained in ethics. How come he teach the course on ethics? And I was like, oh, all the ethicists did not really train in AI. So who should we rely on then? So I think really the way to look forward is really that as a technologist, you become half ethicist or half policymakers. And the other way is also true around that. And this really counts in a way that, when you're working with the ethicists, you're the best technologist right there, right? But you're part of them. Well, on the other side, when you're working in technology, they've always been asking you about questions related to ethics. So I think this is the way forward, that firstly, you need to be part of them. Really, you need to be part of them. Herbert Simon used to have a paper on scientific research. He's really talking about this idea that interdisciplinary research happens only in a way that you become, part of them.
Yeah.
And my second point, really quickly, is that you need to find the right places to engage with them. Let's say for policy making, many people saying that, oh, we can control the risk hierarchically so that you have a risk hierarchy. But for generative AI, the technologists know this won't happen, simply because that by generative AI, you will have cognitive escalation, that the AI system will not stay as they are as a surveillance system. They can evolve to be a weapon to attack when they are drones. They can do surveillance, but they can also attack. And by generative AI, it can evolve its risks automatically. So you cannot control the risk solely by that. And really, that for these working groups that we've been involved, you need people from different perspectives, then you synthesize all together that technologies will sort out for those policies which are not technically feasible. Well, on the other side, that for policymakers, they can help us to understand what should be computationally incorporated into the system. One third point is that we need to have direct influence to each other or be influenced by each other. I think only for that you really can have a synthesized efforts that is practically implementable and actionable.
Absolutely. And the importance of that interdisciplinary willingness to listen to each other and learn from each other is going to be crucial to our success. We have just a few minutes left, and so I want to do one last lightning round. And when I say lightning, I mean lightning. I'm an REI skeptic. I want you to give me in 4 sentences, super quick, something that's going to convince me. I think it costs too much to do REI. I think maybe it's nice words. It ties our hands. When in conflict, our adversaries, they don't have the same values we have. Convince me, quick. Let's start with Madame Cabinet Secretary. Give it your best shot. Convince me.
I think we are on track. We are timely. It's really the time to engage in this discourse. And we must keep the momentum, and I mean the demonstration of interest that we have seen at regional level and at this global level is encouraging.
All right. Dr. Zhang.
I'm a technologist myself, working on non-military AI mainly for theories and foundations. But I'm very grateful that the Global Commission of REAIM invited me to be one of the commissioners, and also I'm one of the senior fellow for UNIDIR. I think I wanted to answer your question this way. It will be the easiest, to advance science, to discover a new science. But it will be harder to think about the consequences of the new science. Well, it will be the hardest, or even harder, that you find the solutions for these negative side effects. We don't really have a choice. This is our responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kim?
Yeah, I think this is a great challenge for all of us. So we need to rethink of who we are against the AI. But since we are in the defense and the military domain with AI right now, I'd like to utilize this opportunity to present one idea. Since we are all working together with AI in this domain, so I'd like to, because the AI takes a lot of money, a lot of effort to build a reliable system, explainable system. So as an ally, so we need to work together to build like a common the framework that we can work together, so that we can save the energy and then effort to build one reliable system. So I really would like to work international bodies and the government to set that up first in the future.
Dr. Van der Hoeven?
Yeah, I'm afraid the technology is pushing us to a point where we have to make very drastic decisions and principled choices. Ethics is a motley squared, basically. It's about duties and obligations and rights and needs and interests and preferences and norms. But sometimes we do a little bit of calculation about the consequences. That's okay. And sometimes we have to go back to the principles. So yeah, you can, as a sheriff in a little town, you can hang an innocent man to prevent a riot in which 100 people will get killed. So some people will say, let's hang the innocent man, and other people say, we don't.
All right. Dr. Plum, convince me.
I challenge you to turn that question on its head. What exactly are we slowing? Irresponsible, unreliable AI applications that are inconsistent with our core values? And these aren't core values of any particular country or company. These are universal values, and you see that in the attendance at REAIM here. You see that in the 55 nations that have signed on to the political declaration. So what's really slowing down adoption is that it's hard to figure out how you operationalize those core values in AI applications. And that's where things like toolkits, where the design principles, the joining ethicists with technologists, and the international partnerships really come to play. This is a situation where better brakes makes faster trains. And if we want to go faster with AI, let's get those toolkits and design tests so that we can responsibly build, test, and deploy AI systems that can meet the range of needs that are there.
I might be convinced after this. Our time has really flown by. We need to bring this session to a close, and I'm sure that each of our panelists has much more to share with us. I'd like to thank each of you for sharing your insights with us. I'd like to thank our hosts, the Republic of Korea, and the co-hosts, the Netherlands, Singapore, Kenya, and the UK, for convening a plenary session on this essential topic of operationalization. And I wish all of us a productive time at REAIM. And now I turn it back over to our hosts. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's show our appreciation to our speakers with a warm round of applause once again. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for your attendance, both online and offline. And ladies and gentlemen, following this, the breakout sessions will be held on the 3rd and the 36th floor of this Lotte Hotel. And ladies and gentlemen, at the Westin Joseon Hotel, we do also have well-organized breakout sessions. So we encourage you to attend the sessions there as well. And to Westin Joseon Hotel, it's only about 5-minute walk away. So ladies and gentlemen, we ask for your active participation at the Westin Joseon Hotel as well. And the participants will be invited to multiple breakout sessions, which will take place concurrently, offering in-depth discussion on topics including human-machine interaction, possible legal framework, definitional issues, unpacking technical issues on explainable and trustworthy AI. So this session will also allow our participants to canvas through existing initiatives and readily available toolkits as well. And ladies and gentlemen, we do have our map on the screen. Also, please scan the QR code to find more detail about the sessions and about the route as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we will reconvene at 5 p.m. Korean Standard Time for REAIM Talks. We hope to meet all of you shortly at 5. Thank you.